After a recap in Klingon, we enter into the final chapter of Star Trek Discovery, Will You Take My Hand? The finale is slower than expected, but with a 45-minute runtime, not a minute seemed superfluous. There were a lot of Klingon cultural interests on display, and a surprising amount of levity, and many TOS references. Yes, including that one. It is all I want to talk about, but that would be an injustice to the rest of this episode, so let's get on with the review. The establishing shots are heavily stylised, with a panning shot through an impossibly small solar system before it settles on Earth, complete with Discovery-styled Earth space dock. The redesign here looks a little more clunky and bulky than the ESD of the motion era time, but that can be explained away with refits and such. Though it was a little bit jarring to see this establishing shot when compared to the realism of orbiting and other scenes that we've seen in the series thus far. But to be fair, that's probably me still not letting go of their seeming misuse of AUs from the previous episodes. Then we get to see a scene of Qo'Nos and its moon Praxis, and we learn very quickly that the Empress is very unconcerned with maintaining her cover in our universe, immediately belittling the Klingons and showing her unrelenting hostility. I definitely see Mira Georgiou having a whale of a time, and the level of smugness on display here is over 9,000. From her point of view, she's been in our universe for, 2 days? And already in charge of a clandestine Federation starship running as Starfleet's last hope. Micheal Yeoh plays the baddie really well here, and her back and forth with Saru is just the right level of menace, especially that slight hungry bite that she gives. Saru's replies aren't just metaphorical either, he really has toughened up since the Shenzhou, working under Lorca, taking command, and his experience on Parvo are all contributing to his character development. Burnham quickly learns that she is operating within Starfleet's approval, and this places her in an uncomfortable situation, mirroring her initial decision from the Vulcan Hello. Does she do what she believes is right, despite it putting her against her superiors and Starfleet orders, or go along with the actions she objects to? The mirror here is that the roles are reversed. Starfleet has taken a very desperate approach while she wishes to uphold the peaceful ethos of the organisation. L'Rell's reaction to meeting the Empress shows how much she's been out of the loop. I mean, what reason would the crew of the Discovery have to explain the Terran situation to her? So I'm pleased to see that there wasn't any level of sudden magical exposition dump that she seemed aware of. Also, the 7 tunnels that cover Qo'Nos reminded me of the 7 hills of the Roman Empire. Nothing else there, I'm just noting a similarity between empires. Although it was nice to see L'Rell aim her comment of "you've already lost" to Burnham, as from her point of view she's just been assaulted by a Starfleet captain while she was defenceless and a POW. A clear loss of humanity and lessening of Starfleet's values. You have already lost. Lost what makes you Starfleet. They decide to use Tyler's intelligence from Vok to assist the mission, to scan the subterranean network, and the use of his not to represent his ties to his past, his desire to remain Tyler, are, well, they're very obvious and quite on the nose. Now, Qo'Nos isn't really all that well known to the Federation yet for obvious reasons, and all their intelligence on the site is all coming from third hand. Tyler is able to clarify enough to narrow down a plan of action, and we get the first of several mentions to existing canon. He says that the volcanic vents were used as sacrificial pits in the time of Molor, the tyrant ruler of Qo'Nos, who infamously clashed with Kahless, while the latter was on his rise to power. Georgiou's use of Tilly on the mission goes even further to show that the Empress is simply using this as an excuse to satisfy her curiosity and simply enjoy herself. I loved how nervous and uncomfortable she became immediately, getting told off for the Imperial salute was "totes orcs," as was my use of "totes orcs." And the civilian clothing they adopted was as cool AF. The Empress's outfit in particular was amazing, and she looked completely at home in a cape and high collar again. When the Discovery jumps to the cavern system, it's nice to see Gravity glance in their direction and suddenly demand to know, "What the hell do you think you're playing at?" The ship then stabilises, and although they mention the shields are holding, they then beam out. I'll just assume that they lowered the shields then. Now, this is the part I wanted to see. Qo'Nos, the life of a bustling Klingon homeworld outside of the capital city that we saw so much of 120 years later in The Next Generation. I must have gone through these scenes in such detail because there was so much to see. These things look familiar? They look like a cross between the Seti eels and the neural parasites. Now, this place is run by Orions, who have been long-standing allies with the Klingons. Well, not allies exactly, but they're not hostile either. Tilly is quickly able to revert to being Killy when she needs to, but only when she feels comfortable and surrounded by friends. As we see later on, she's still her usual nervous self when isolated, but it's a great way to show the level of her character development, especially in confidence. The Empress decides that she can acquire the information and have fun at the same time, leaving Tilly with the drone, in quotation marks, while Tyler and Burnham mingle with some Klingons playing at gambling. Watching Tyler interact here with the Klingons made me smile, and I decided then and there that Tyler would be a very good Federation Qo'Nos ambassador. His rowdiness and use of the Klingon language integrates him quickly, and although I suppose he has a bit of an advantage. But it's nice to see the Klingons having a good time, akin to the feasting and drinking that they were renowned for. Of course, Burnham has to put a downer on the atmosphere with her backstory. Oh look! A Trill getting a tattoo. Nice, another Trek race to add to the list along with the Orions. Looks like Discovery is more open to include classic designs now that it's established its own style. Tyler and Burnham have a heart-to-heart on her feelings for Klingons, and it helps him understand her attitude towards him since finding out. But what shows her compassion here is that she sees the Klingons as just people, despite Tyler's insistence that the feeling is most definitely not mutual. Tilly's reaction to the discovery of the Hydra bomb is perfect, and Burnham puts it together, realising that she's operating within Starfleet's blessing, as hinted at in the previous episodes. They confront Admiral Cornwell with the plan, while the Empress proceeds as she wants. Burnham argues the rhetoric of what's the point of saving humanity if we lose what it means to make us human, while Cornwell counters with a very Section 31 stance of if we don't survive, then how does it matter either way? The whole "we are Starfleet" felt a bit too cringy for me, especially when compared to Saru's previous speech, but who cares, it's Burnham's time to shine now. And it reminded me of this.
We're all standing up now. Bunch of jackasses standing in a circle.
They bring Cornwell around to the new idea based on cooperation. Now the tricky part is to convince the Empress not to do it for the hell of it, and her exclamation that she's nothing like Prime George U made me smile. It was always Burnham projecting onto her. It's what led her to save the Empress in the first place, and what's ensured her begrudging loyalty thus far. Burnham's bluff seems to contradict this somewhat, but the Empress plays it off as a change of whim to spare Qo'Nos. I'll be honest, I didn't expect them to hand over the Hydra bomb to L'Rell, let alone put her in charge of Kronos' future. From my standpoint, L'Rell still cannot be trusted at all. Her adherence to T'Kuvma's rhetoric of a united empire was based off of war with the Federation, but they gamble L'Rell sees a failure of T'Kuvma's plan, but will continue to follow the idea of a unified Klingon people. That's a hell of a gamble, as she has to hold the Empire hostage to establish herself. Burnham's look as Tyler comforts L'Rell is subtle and conveys/betrays her feelings for him that are still there. The last few episodes of Discovery have been filled with these little nuances and background details, and it works really well in developing the characters. You don't need dialogue-heavy scenes to expand on a character, just let them grow naturally. The Empress then leaves with the Federation pardon to presumably go enjoy her new life, while Burnham and Tyler reconcile and go their separate ways. It does make sense for Tyler to travel with L'Rell, as he can help stabilise the Empire. Oh, and nice OG Klingon transporter effect, by the way. Another little detail that I noticed was a bit of an odd one, but during the panning shot of Paris in the Federation building, the soft clinking of the flagpoles grounded the scene for me. The sound editing here was on point, and with so much CGI going on, this little touch added realism to the scene that could easily be lost otherwise. I'm not sure why I noticed this, but it's not often that Foley gets a shout out, so consider this one a real thumbs up. Sarek seems emotional when he reinstates Burnham, a bit too much in my opinion, and also reinstating Burnham at her former rank seems a little too lenient. I thought she'd at least be demoted. Her speech at the end in the assembly hall was a powerful affirmation of what the Federation stands for, but I kept thinking, I hope she's not actually speaking over the Admiral as the Admiral tries to present the medals. Though I think this was another example of a strange, stylised edit. Then the Discovery departs for Vulcan, and we learn that the spore drive tech is put on cooler as Starfleet upholds its standpoint on human eugenics, pardoning Stamets but preventing further use of the tech. It's also pleasing to see that Saru retains the chair for a while longer, at least until we meet Discovery's new captain, whoever he/she is. We then hear the Priority 1 distress call and immediately understand that this is to be the hook for the next season, but oh my, what a hook. I saw the NCC-17 appear and was like, oh. Then they said that Pike was calling and I was just like, oh yes, but they're not going to show it. Oh my god, they totally did! Burnham and Sarek share a look that conveys their understanding. This is Spock's vessel, and we see it in full flyby, and it looks great. Now, they've redesigned the nacelle pylons with ones that are more akin to the Constitution refit, and on one hand this is time period wrong, but on the other, I did prefer the look of the refits to the original. However, they have preserved the silhouette and the colour scheme, the scale, and although the whole detailing is more advanced, it clearly resembles the original Enterprise. My favourite redesign of the original Enterprise is this fan-made one, and it sits here because I find it a good example of how to do a redesign of the classic era ship in a modern way. It retains the look and feel of the original, and Discovery has tried to capture this ethos too, and this is something that, frankly, it needed to do. If they deviate too far with the design of the original Enterprise, imagine the backlash. The Kelvin universe redesigned it, and that had its own problems and its own outcry, and that even had the benefit of being set in a completely alternate universe. Overall, this episode was a good way to close the series. On one hand, I am disappointed that the Federation didn't engage the Klingon forces in an epic space battle, but on the other hand, not including this allowed for a greater focus on the events that mattered. What we see of Qo'Nos, although dominated by Orion culture, was beautifully realised, from the alien graffiti to the background inclusion of known Trek races. Let's hope this level of care is taken when exploring Season 2, as it looks like it's going to focus on the Enterprise, and maybe we'll even get to meet Pike and Spock. What uniforms will they be wearing, and will we see the interiors of the Enterprise at all? I'm trying not to let that ending reveal overshadow this review, but hot damn, I'm excited. Hot damn. Who says hot damn? Never saying that again. I'll probably do a spoiler-free review of Discovery overall at some point in the near future, as I still need to organise my thoughts on it as a whole. But I think it ended strong. If anything, they overemphasised the themes of the Federation, making it feel a bit desperate to feel Trek. But overall, the series had a rocky start, so I can see why. So, thanks again for watching this review, and there's always a place for Trek on this channel, so I hope to see you again. Come on, what do you think of the new Enterprise design? I've been Rick, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.